Welcome to episode 74.
Major Arcana
Part 2. Because we spent so much time talking about just 2 cards, we decided to split this into 2.
Join us as we discuss how there are no good cards and there are no bad cards.
They're just cards that provide a great deal of insight.
Some of which comes easier than others.
Indeed. And in this episode, we'll be discussing the Hanged One and the Tower. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring 2 real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 74. Major
Major
Arcana,
Arcana,
Part 2. Well, we were optimistic, I think, and we thought that we could talk about 4 cards in an hour, and apparently we can't.
I find that I love it so much, and there's so much in it.
They're really rich.
That it's really rich. Rich is a great way to describe it.
Yeah, so now we know for future. But we did 2 in our last episode. We did the High Priestess, and we did the Hierophant. And now we're going to go into 2 other cards this time. We'll be talking about the Tower, and we'll be talking about the Hanged One.
And then we're also going to talk about ways that our listeners might choose to find out what their year card is and also what their life card is.
Yes. But before we dive into that, let's kind of catch up on what's been happening in the past couple of weeks.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll start. So I was in Ireland for a week, about 10 days, and had a fabulous, fabulous time. And I guess I could check in about that another time. But I brought back a little bit of a souvenir from Ireland, which was COVID. Oh. I know. And what was funny about this? So basically, I was fine. I didn't have, I had some cold symptoms mainly, and a little bit of a fever. But what I found hit me the most was, first of all, people kept saying, rest, rest, rest. And I felt exhausted pretty much the whole time, pretty fatigued. And so I found that I was basically sitting on this sofa where we're recording for 2 weeks straight. I mean, I'd get up, I'd eat a little something, I'd make some tea, I'd drink a lot of tea, drink some water, then I'd come back and sit down here. And there was nothing wrong with that. And I kept, I think the most important thing for me was that I kept telling myself, that's okay. And a part of this was that I was processing, because I didn't realize how much ego I had invested in the fact that I hadn't gotten COVID.
So this is what I wanted to hear about a lot. I mean, I asked about your health.
Yeah.
I care about that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was really curious about this portion of.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. So I think a part of it, I do a lot of natural. I have a very natural approach to life. I try not to do a lot of medications, et cetera, et cetera. I use my essential oils and other naturopathic remedies and things, and natural like cleaners around the house, and I think I was priding myself on the fact that because I was doing that, I had this super good immune system, really, really healthy biome, which I probably do, and I'm not taking anything away from that. And I think I just thought that I wasn't going to get COVID. That all of this and my mindset, because, I recognize that my mind has so much impact on my environment, and I can invoke this 5D approach to controlling the health of my body and the circumstances around me, and blah, 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 blah. And I got fucking COVID. And what was so funny about it was, it was like, okay, maybe I came back to San Antonio. Maybe it's the allergies, etc. And then, so it was the day before. And it was like, usually I have been, taking COVID tests for various organizations that we belong to. And for our circle, we have to test before we go. So this was the day before, and normally I'm so used to just doing the test, going about doing my business, coming back, it's every once in a while it's like, why don't I just use the same one and just take a picture and just send the same one? But I try to be dutiful, a good member of my community, etc. And so I saw the line, but it was very, very faint. Now this was an old test, so I was thinking, oh, okay. Shows you what an idiot. I'm like, oh, it's a false positive because it's such an old test. Realizing all the literature says that you get false negatives with an old, or nothing happens, right? So I said, oh, I'm just going to do another one with a fresher test. And with the fresher test, that line was like super fucking red. It's like,
oh my gosh.
And you know what it reminds me of? Back in, like 20, 30 years ago, the pregnancy test, like... and then just to be on the safe side, I did a fairy test.
Oh my gosh. This is just like pregnancy tests. It's just double checking, triple checking.
Maybe if I alter my reality, I'll have a different test. But no. So I think that was about when I called you and said, I'm not going to be there tomorrow. But yeah, that was an eye opener for me because there was a whole lot of, I don't know if it was necessarily shame itself, but there was a whole lot of stuff going around about my inability to not be able to stave off COVID or something. And that I think I might have been judging people who did have COVID. Like, like, you need to be doing more oils. Like, whatever. Or I don't know because I can't remember that time, but knowing how I felt about myself, I would imagine that existed. At the time, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm guessing. So it was an enlightening period, a humbling period for me because it showed me that I'm not as far down the path as I thought. I mean, both in a number of different ways, but yeah. So, but I'm fine now. I actually got up off the sofa. I tell people I peeled myself off. All of the piles that developed around the sofa because I would do something and then I'm just too tired to get up and put it somewhere else. I've actually started clearing that up. So I'm coming out of it, and I think I'm still processing some of the emotional insights of that period.
I love that you shared that because you could have just not said that. You could have just said I got sick and been done, and then I was tired. But because I think that to a lot of people, COVID and other life experiences that really bump us offer us that insight and offer us the opportunity to have the insight, whether or not we take advantage of it or not.
Oh right,
or we take the opportunity to see how it's impacting us and rubbing up against our edges. So I love that you.
Thank you. Yeah,
I love that you shared that.
Yeah, and it's also it's also politically charged and all this kind of stuff. That I don't even think I was worried about. But it was just it was an opportunity. It was a valuable learning experience. So thank you, COVID. So yeah. So what about with you? What's been going on for you in the past since we last talked?
I wanted to share that I went to a summer camp. So up in Missouri, there's a summer camp. I've been going since 2002 when I would have been 19 years old is when I first started being a counselor there. Since 2002, I've missed 4 summers total. 1 for being in China, and 3 the past couple of years. COVID. Yeah, during COVID, whenever I was training at different circus centers. But I've been there. I've gone 17 summers in a row. Well, 17 summers. Sometimes up to 4 times per summer. Like back when I was younger, that was like my summer job. So the point being is that I've spent a lot of time at this place. Sometimes like multiple weeks. In a year. And so I went back and I just wanted to share about my experience of going from 19 to 40.
Oh, yay.
And it's just been really interesting. And this last time I've watched the changes happen in myself over these 17 summers that I've spent there. And this past time I went was when it was really evident to me. Because one of my friends, she talks about growing up there. Like, we grew up together, like,
right.
in this, for lack of a better term, this cohort of people my age who I met and then spent my summers with for 17 summers. And then as I've gotten older, as we've all gotten older, people peel away for different reasons. Some just camp no longer is a part of their life. Some get jobs where they don't have the ability to, take off a full week, or maybe they only get 2 weeks and they don't want to use one for camp, which I totally get.
Yeah.
Some people have children, like whatever, for there's just a lot of reasons. And I've watched this peeling happen over the years. And then this last summer that I went, like a couple weeks ago, I was the only person from my cohort there.
Whoa.
So, and I knew that going in, but it was just really interesting to be there and to be in this space and to be the only person from my group, really. And just to feel that and like I had some loneliness and I had some grief around it. I also wondered, like, how do I fit in now, and also I wanted to say that, like, I can see why, just like your introspection of having COVID, I could see how people would avoid this.
Right.
Because it definitely brings up some thoughts. And if I had more insecurities around aging, it would be extra hard. But I could see why people would just avoid it altogether because maybe they just don't want to deal with that,
Right.
But like I really sat in it, and it was really interesting. I had some really interesting experiences personally as I sat in, like, what does this mean for me? Who am I? How do I fit in to the world? Whenever I'm the last one there, but it was just an interesting experience. And I imagine I'm going to have more opportunities like this. I'm only 40. Like, I'm going to have more opportunities like this as I continue to go on my life journey. But I chose to stay. I chose to lean in. There were some times where I chose to, kind of sit back and watch. Sometimes where I chose to, like, dive in more, but it was just interesting to feel what it feels like to be on this journey of life and to see things change around me and to witness that. And it was beautiful, like there was a moment, this wasn't a beautiful moment, but there was a moment where the campers were around and one of them asked me, like, how long have you been doing camp? And I said, well, my first year of camp was in 2002. And the kid turned to me and was like, I wasn't even born yet.
Oh my gosh.
And then part of me was like, ha ha ha. And another part of me was like, oh my God.
Oh my God. So similar to kind of what you said to me, I am kind of in awe at how you took this experience and used this as an opportunity for some, it sounds like really deep reflection, or at least the beginnings of some deep reflections, and how camp in your cohort is kind of a metaphor, and you're kind of exploring that and diving deep into that. I think that's fascinating. And just a really quick aside, I remember my first year at camp. So this would have been, if you want some perspective.
Okay.
The first year I taught at a summer camp was 1978.
I wasn't even born yet.
I was waiting for that. Yes, indeed. And I remember there were these sweet little, like, it was my pre-K group, so whatever age that was, like 3 or 4. And the two little girls were talking to each other, and one said to the other, my dad's 29, and he's still alive. And I, like, how many years ago was that? Like 40, 50? And I still remember that. I mean, and he's still alive. And you could see the other one going like, do I know what 29 means?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a neat perspective for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is, wow.
Yeah, it's I think I'm going to have more opportunities to lean into things like this. And
trust me, you will.
And I don't want to go back to camp because I go to camp. I want it to, and I also don't want to not go because other people are not going. I want to do what I want to do because it's what I choose. Like there's power and choice. So I just want to continue to experience what it's like and just see how that impacts me and how I feel and what lessons there are to learn from it. And yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I should offer more for my check-in, but my check-in is just like, this is an experience and I'm feeling it. And
you're still feeling it.
I am. Yeah. And I feel like I have more to unfold from it. And I'll have, as time continues, I'll have more unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate, both the insight. And like you say, it's kind of like, you're in it and there's good and there's maybe some sad stuff going on in there, but it's all making you. So,
yes.
Yeah. Whatever that might end up being.
Yes. Speaking of making me and making you, how about we...
Let's delve into the tarot, shall we?
Delve into the tarot.
In fact, let's do this because one of the things we talked about, I think I mentioned that one of my choices was my life card and the other was my year card, that maybe we could talk a little bit about how we derive that information. Yeah?
I would love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
Well, so basically it's actually using numerology. Yeah. So to get your life card, all you're doing is you're just taking your birth date and you're adding up the month and the day, and I'll do mine, and then you just add it to the year, and then you break it down to the smallest number under 21, and then that's your card. So for example, my birthday, in case anyone's interested, is September 27th, 1958. So you add 9 and 27, and 9 and 27, you come up with 36, and then you add that to 1958, and you get a certain number, and you boil it down. So I have... Oh, there we go.
Here's the paper.
Yeah. So in my case, so you have 36 over 1958. You come up with 1994. You add that all up, and I can't remember. So let's see. 1 and 9 is 10, and 9 is 19, and 4 is 23, which 23 is still too high for the major arcana. So then you add those together, and you come up with 5.
2 plus 3. Okay.
2 plus 3 is 5. Okay. Now, in some cases, some people can... let's say you get something that adds, it could be 21, or it could be 3. And then you might have to do some work around that because you can actually, it could really be 3, or it could be 21, and you might have to do a little bit of work around that, just like maybe, I don't know, some pendulum or some other divinatory stuff. But and so similarly, that's how you get your life card. And then to get your year card, you would do the same thing. You would take your month and your birth month and day, and then you would add it to that year. So for this year, 2023, I add 36 to 2023, and I get whatever that is. And then, and then that boils down to, it boils down to the tower. So there we go.
Can you share a little bit though about the arc, which this is something I find really interesting.
Yeah. So the system that we use was actually shared with us by a woman who has been on our broadcast, Maggie, and it comes from a tarot book by Arien, Arrien, I think, and the idea is that as you go through each year, so I'm looking at my arc from 2014 to 2023, and my year card was 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then at a certain point it bops back down because just the way the time adds up, and that arc itself is meaningful because you're going through the major arcana, but then that year where you bop back to in my case strength, is also a very significant year, and there's a lot of symbolism around it. There's a lot of different ways you can take it, but I think that's super important.
And that bop, as you put it, is for you is going to happen between
next year,
2023 and 2024.
Yeah, so.
After your tower year?
After my tower year. It's like the year's not rough enough. And then, or maybe the bop might be like this wonderful thing where it turns out that I'm totally in 5D. And I don't know, you just see like this wisp instead of seeing me or something. Every once in a while, like a voice will come out, "Hey, how's it going, Leilani?" I don't know. But I actually need to go back and read that chapter. And see what happens. Yeah, but I think it's if you're at all interested in this, it would be a wonderful opportunity for some self-reflection to maybe work with your year card and your life card.
And I oftentimes put my year card as the background on my cell phone, just to remind me. I also have my year card in my journal for the year, and then I do a pull at the beginning of every calendar year for each month, for a card for each month. And so I have that in my journal. I have my year card on a page. I have my year card in the middle, and then in a circle around it, I have each of my month cards. And so then whenever I get to the new month, I pull that card. And we've talked in our other tarot episode, like I have digital images of them that I print out and I cut out. So I like glue the picture.
You taught me that, and now now that I found my stuff again, I do that a lot. I have, except you know what I've learned through doing that there's a certain number of cards that come up again, because I printed out, I think, like at least four sets, and there's certain ones that I'm going through those babies like there's no tomorrow. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know any? Well, we can talk about it when we start talking about suits. But I've noticed that with crystals for me. But what would be Earth, I guess. In another deck.
Okay.
So
yeah.
We need to talk about that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the major arcana, and shall we start with? I mean, they're both. It's like the Hanged One and the Tower.
Yeah. One thing that we mentioned in the last episode that I want to say again is that. And I think you and I are in agreement that there really are no bad cards.
No.
There are no evil cards. There are no bad cards. Even people, like, so whenever I read for other people, like even the devil or death, people from the outside looking in could be freaked out.
Right.
And honestly, I get freaked out by the Tower. The Tower is the one that freaks me out the most. Sorry if that's not very reassuring to you. But in my opinion, there are no good or bad cards. There are no good cards either. There are only cards that invite us into learning and examining with opportunities for growth.
Exactly.
And now some of that growth might be less strenuous to walk. Other growth might hit me over the head with a bat with nails on it.
And some growth can be negotiated, right? That through the insight, that's actually helping you to chart a smoother way through whatever is in store for you, right?
Yes.
And you have sparkles in your hair.
I have tinsel in my hair.
Oh, okay. I keep thinking, it's my imagination, but it's like I'm seeing it again and again.
Yeah, I have tinsel in my hair. It's from camp.
Oh, okay.
It's black. It's black tinsel with rainbow reflective.
Okay, yeah.
And I got that because my partner is graduating, so I wanted something a little subtler.
Yeah.
But I have more. I went and bought some more tinsel.
Okay, so. Because I the first couple of times I thought, okay, so it's the light, no. Then is that I thought because your glasses, it was the sparkles from your glasses, and then I said, no, trust your instincts. She's fucking got sparkles in her hair, but yeah, it's adorable.
Thank
it's
you for
really
noticing.
Good. Yeah,
my favorite color is black sparkles. So
lovely. Okay. Anyway, okay, good. So
speaking of there not being any bad cards,
yes. So the cards that we're going to be talking about today are the Tower and the Hanged One, or the Hanged Man, depending on the deck that you're dealing with. Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay.
This is my most challenging card.
The Tower?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to describe it, and in our last episode, in case you missed it, I put links in to pictures of the decks. Oh, we should talk about that really briefly too.
Yeah.
The decks that we're working with. This year, I'm dedicated to working with the Syrian Starseed deck, but another deck that I've used a lot and have had a great deal of powerful insight from is the Thoth deck. And so I will be putting links to these in the show notes.
And the deck that I'm using is the Rider-Waite, which for me kind of represents like where a lot of like kind of like one of the older decks, and then
more traditional.
I just find it funny using the word traditional. Like anytime we describe like our circle or
it's the word.
It's just a weird.
Yeah,
it's a weird juxtaposition. But I'm a witch. I feel like I can stand in that. So the Rider-Waite, which is the more traditional deck, and then a descendant of the Rider-Waite lineage of like symbolism is the Modern Witch, and that's the deck I'm currently reading from.
And the thing about the Modern Witch that I really like is it takes kind of the Rider-Waite quote unquote traditional and it sets it on its head.
It does.
It modernizes it, but it modernizes sometimes in a very tongue in cheek, sometimes very ironic way. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And definitely a more feminist perspective and a less
white patriarchal hierarchy.
Thank you. White patriarchal hierarchical classist way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. There we go.
Call a shovel a shovel.
Let's do it. Thank you so much. And thank you for saying that too. So talking about the tower. In the Syrian Starseed deck, and I think this is kind of traditional. I mean, not traditional, but you'll see this in a lot of decks. There's thunder. Usually there's a big storm, and then there's a tower of some sort. It could be an old-fashioned crenellated tower, or it can be in my case, it looks like a wall, more like the wall of a tower. And you can see kind of like some crenellation-ish, crenellation adjacent look at the top. And of course, there's the figure that's always falling out of the tower. Either because of the shock of the lightning or something, or they're throwing themselves over. And in this, it's usually very colorful. Mine is a very saturated look, but it's dark. It's nighttime. There's bright white lightning, and the figure is more of a shadow than an actual person whose details you can distinguish. So that's in the Syrian Starseed, and in the Thoth deck, the tower is a very abstract looking. It's a lot of oranges and reds. There's the Eye of Horus up at the top. There's serpents, doves, I think it's a dove.
I think it's a dove and an olive branch.
With an olive branch.
Well, that's interesting.
But yes, and then it's a very abstract kind of Picasso looking, wouldn't you agree?
I would
type
say
of
that's
tower.
Like,
that's kind of cattywampus, and it looks like it's in the embrace of this kind of being, wouldn't you say? Or that looks kind of like a sandworm over there.
With a mouth with like flames coming
out, but abstract flames. And so we get that kind of and from the Eye of Horus, it's kind of like a sun-like look to it, and it has beams coming out, but they're sharp and angled. So that can kind of be like the lightning, etc. And then it looks like broken. Would you say those are broken chains or chain-like? Abstract train-like things?
I could see that.
Or would those be the people? Or would those be bodies?
I think those are the people falling out of it.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right, and then what's that then? What do you think that is? That black thing there to the side, or that's negative space?
Yeah, I thought that was the negative space,
like the shadow of the tower. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. Anyway, so that's the Thoth. I mean, they're pretty powerful. It's a powerful card, and we'll talk a little bit about the power. What about in your decks?
So for mine, the Rider-Waite, there's the similar imagery with the tower, the flames, the jagged lightning bolt coming from outside of the frame into the frame, with the crown flying off.
Oh, right. Yes.
And then all of the towers in my decks are built on rocky, uneven foundation, which for me is really tied to the meaning of the card.
Yes.
And then you've got the people falling out of it. On the Rider-Waite, there's even one of the people is wearing a crown, which I think is really cool.
Oh, okay.
And they're like flying out of it. There's flames in the sky. And then in the Modern Witch one, it's this exact same imagery with the crown, the lightning bolt, the tower built on the uneven foundation, like the rocky stuff. And then there's the person falling out of it, and then there's one person who has fallen out and is pierced by.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. It's been so long since I've seen that image.
The uneven, mountainy, rocky stuff
on the crags. Yeah. Whoa. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what that all means, shall we? Basically, chaos and destruction. So, again, when you see that, you just, one might be tempted to just think, oh crap, my life is going to hell in a handbasket.
That is kind of
in a
what
very
I
short,
think when I
very
get
short
that.
handbasket. But anyway, so, it represents sudden upheaval, unexpected change, and by the time you're seeing this in your reading, it's usually unavoidable. Like you probably for months had other cards that told that, like we talked about earlier, help you to navigate a smoother path, and you ignored it, or you did something else. I'm not sure exactly what.
One does not build a tower overnight.
Yeah,
Like the uneven foundation
yes.
that the tower was built on has been there from the beginning, and then, speaking for myself, then I spent years building that tower.
Exactly.
So it's not just something that, boom, it's like I have done this for years.
Yes.
I've done this for a long time.
Yes, usually, yes. I like that. I like that imagery of building on a crappy foundation and then building a really big, strong, powerful tower, but on an uneven, craggy foundation. Yeah. And so the thing about it is that it's by the time you get there, you're going to have your tower. There's no way around it. You're going to have your tower. And so what do you do with that information, right? It's kind of like you're going over a waterfall in a barrel. People used to do that, right? And so, you could kind of fight it and try to grab yourself, or you could figure out what's the best way that I can make sure I go over this waterfall in this barrel, or I can go out of, this tower is going to, the tower's coming down. So what's the best way I can negotiate that? And one of the things I think about the tower is that if you survive it, and one might hope that you would, there's usually there's nothing left, right? So there's nothing to hold on to. There's no whatever the pride, fear, whatever, it's gone at that point. So all you have is this bright, shiny newness. Usually raw, red, like the bright, shiny newness is like flesh that's been exposed. But there's renewal. There's this opportunity to kind of move through this, depending on how you survive it, right?
Well, and I think that's really interesting in the context of this card of yours, because there is the dove with the olive branch.
Yes. So there is that. I don't see any hope for that.
I don't see any of that in any of the other cards.
No. But yeah, so that the idea is that destruction generally, it's a very natural cycle. Destruction is generally followed by creation, or recreation. I don't know, and renewal, new growth from the ashes, from the rubble.
I was actually thinking about forest, natural. The natural forest fires, and how when done naturally, when nature does it, I'm not saying when the stuff that we have going on now, but the ashes are so fertile and
oh yeah, yes, and it clears away the underbrush so that new things can grow. And for pine trees, that's the only way that the pine, the outside of the cone, is exposed enough so that it can germinate. Did you know that?
No.
Yes.
God, nature's so rad.
I know, it is so radical. It's so radical. It is, isn't it? Isn't that amazing? So some species actually rely on that cyclical cleansing out to grow and thrive. So, but it's the surviving thing. So, okay. So one of the things that not every tower event can denote tragedy. It could, particularly if you're in a reading and the surrounding cards are positive, it could just represent massive upheaval. Which for some people is still tragedy. but massive upheaval can be, it can look like a lot of things, right? And it's not necessarily the end of the world.
Mm-hmm. What might be a massive upheaval that's not negative?
A massive upheaval that's not negative would be, I don't know, hitting the lottery.
Hitting the
lottery because your life is going to change. Well, it might be because people are going to start hitting you from it. Well, but the actual upheaval itself is not necessarily negative, right? So it could be something like that. It could be a massive change where you get this new, totally different job where you have to move to Spain or something.
Yeah,
the shuttle, starting that shuttle business.
Yes. So that does make sense though, like that because that would be a total massive upheaval. Everything that you had built in your life, you now had to go somewhere else and kind of start over in that way. So that makes sense.
Yeah. So it can be a number of different things. And I think one of the major aspects though of the tower is regardless of what the change is, from the outside, it looks very scary. Or from your perspective at the beginning of the process, it looks very scary. And that's the fear, the darkness, the lightning, the falling out, the potential of the building actually crumbling. And moving, how you move through it is going to make a difference in that experience.
That makes sense to me. I think one of the reasons why for me the tower is this card I'm the most afraid of is because change is scary for me. Change is so scary. I feel so out of control.
Control. I was going to throw that word in there.
Yeah. So I think that for me, that's why the tower just pokes at me right in my softest spot.
Yeah, because it at that point it's absolute lack of control over everything, and it could be and again it's like to me I keep coming back to that idea of going over the waterfall. It's that you're going to go over the waterfall regardless, right? But you can do it in such a way that it's going to be scary, it's going to be hard, etc. But you can come out of it better than other ways that you go through it, right? And I think seeing the card itself, it's one of those things where you have to go through your 5 minutes of fear and pain and rejection or whatever, and then take the time to say, okay, now I have this information. What can I do with it? And I think it's super, super, super valuable about that. Sometimes it can still be a warning that is something that you can avoid. It's just that by the time you're seeing that, it's like, bitch, you should have just been listening the past 75 other spreads. But here's one more chance for you to...
Well, because we can burn up inside the building, or like how we choose to exit or navigate the burning tower, and then how we choose to rebuild, or if we choose to rebuild.
Yes.
There's a lot of
Whoa. Whoa.
What?
Well, so there's that. Okay, so here's the thing. Here you get this card. It's like your tower's fucking coming down. Your tower is. So what do you do with that information? It could be, okay, well, let me, grab all my stuff and let me make sure that I have a cushion so when my tower falls down, I can land on this cushion. Or it could be, maybe I'll just walk out of this building.
Right?
Like, okay, well, see ya. It's been great.
Right?
Moving on. I'm going over to Strength, hanging out with Strength for a couple of days, and I'll be back. And or I might not be back. Wow. Wow. Okay. So just did that make any sort of sense?
Yes.
Because it made sense to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Because I have both done myself and witnessed beloveds seem to chain themselves to the tower, and then like just really hold on
and literally crash and burn.
And then they crash and they burn. And I just think there's a lot of power in the choice of how we choose to navigate that experience.
And it's one of the things that we were talking about in our check-ins, right? This idea that we're experiencing this. So what do we do with this experience? Like, do I just lay back on my sofa and just, blow my nose for 2 weeks and say, okay, I had COVID? Or do I take that as an opportunity to kind of explore some of my baggage around health, around self-sufficiency, things like that. And yeah. It's similarly with you with the camp, so... Oh, yeah, it's a valuable learning experience.
Well, and like you have in your notes here, a valuable learning experience that can show up in a lot of different places, like careers or spirituality, romantic relationships. Like you can, I can have tower moments in all these different areas of my life.
Yes. And and you can choose to negotiate that in a lot of different ways, and I'm sure none of them are invalid. It's just going to make a difference in how you experience the tower, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So this is my tower year.
How is that? How are you experiencing your tower year?
So a lot of things are really good. I'm experiencing a lot of tower energy around things that I thought about myself.
Oh,
I think I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this. So, the camp that I helped organize, I've experienced a lot of stuff around age. I was, I think, the second oldest person there. And, so thinking about, so what does that mean for me? What is that, what kind of things are coming up because of that? So that, I faced retirement. And because of that, my financial situation has changed dramatically without me kind of preparing my head for those changes. So this is a tower. I'm experiencing some tower energy. So, and we're only halfway through. No, we're a little bit more than halfway through, but there's plenty more of 2020. And some people with their year card, they try to go from their birthday to birthday.
Yes.
It's really the year, but like the idea that while we're doing it by the calendar year, my next year starts at my birthday, right?
Correct.
So, my 65th year starts in September. So when does the energy from 2024 really start filtering in? Does it go by my age? Does it go by the calendar year, which is an artificial construct, as we've discussed for years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't discussed it for years, but it's been, it's an artificial construct. But, so when does that? I say all of that to say I'm hoping I get through the tower faster than.
I think it starts in September.
Okay, there we go. Because that's when your year starts.
That's when your year starts.
That's when my year starts.
Yeah, because your birthday's in September.
Yeah, but it's also the academic. So for a lot of people, the energy, we've talked about this before.
Yes,
our
the calendars.
Energy, our calendars. A little bit different.
I definitely use like an academic calendar more in my life than most people do. Yeah,
but anyway, my tower year is not done. And that's okay. I'm like I say, I'm taking this as a wonderful opportunity to explore a lot of things about myself before the cracks start in the foundation, So, anything for you about the tower or anything more?
It's my least favorite card.
It's your least favorite card?
Yeah.
Well, because even if we say all of the things that there's no bad cards, it's still
I want our listeners to hear that coming from me. Like I do believe there are no bad cards. All cards are good and bad. All cards offer opportunities for learning.
It's just the tower offers a lot of opportunities for learning.
The tower is the one that just hits me in the soft spot the most. Like it's my most challenging card. I guess is the best way for me to express it. It's the card that challenges me the most.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's if you see it in a reading.
Yes. Yeah.
Ugh. Well, so you're at the Hanged One in 2 years or 3 years. Wait, the Hanged One is 12. What's so about 4 years?
Great.
Just like, unless your arc changes.
Yeah, I haven't planned. I haven't read out my arc, so I'm not sure when that shift would happen. That'd be cool to happen before the snow.
Well, you're doing such work now that is a potential.
I can hope.
Yeah.
I can hope.
So let's move on. If you feel comfortable, let's move on to the speaking of the Hanged One or the Hanged Man, depending on your deck. You want to tell us a little bit of what that looks like?
Yeah. So this is my year card. And we did not plan that we both picked our year card as one to talk about. Also, it was not planned that both are, I think, more challenging cards. So the Hanged One in my two decks, I'm going to describe it visually. In the Rider-Waite, it's the T cross. So if you think of like a cross, like the Christian cross has 4 points on it. The T cross has 3 points.
It's like a capital T.
It looks like a capital T. So normally the hanged one is on that. In the Rider-Waite, it's the hanged man. Our circle has taught me to call it the hanged one a long time ago, and then this deck, the Modern Witch deck, calls it the hanged one. So there's normally leaves on that cross, like denoting growth. And then there's a person is being hung upside down, normally by their right foot. Their left foot is in the shape of a 4. And then they're upside down, and there's normally like a glowing light around their head. That's the Rider-Waite. And in the Modern Witch, it's almost exactly the same image. And the body is in the same position, although she's wearing like cool sneakers. And
a crop top.
And a super cute crop top. And then the Rider-Waite has he has a belt around his waist. She has fishnet stockings around her waist, which I absolutely love.
And you did say something about, did you say halo?
The light glowing, a halo of light that is emanating from around their head.
And what about their facial expression? So they're hanging upside down. What are they? Are they?
It's a more serene, introspective look. Definitely not like pain or agony or anguish or like being freaked out.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
What about you?
Okay, so in my Thoth deck, I need to look at it right side up. So in the Thoth deck, we have a hanged. It's called the Hanging Man, and but it's kind of, I don't see any. I mean, it's naked. So, but there's no. Do you see any genitalia?
No, but the torso does look more masculine.
Yeah, it doesn't have boobs, but it doesn't have like a penis or anything. I mean, that's
right. It's
no, there's kind of like a little,
lump,
a little, yeah. Okay, all right, okay.
Like more like dance belts, smooth energy. There.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, like the like little cherub gods. It's like little balls.
Ken doll energy.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so they're hanging upside down, but what they're hanging from, instead of a tree, they're hanging from an upside down ankh.
That's cool.
And at the top of the image, it's almost like a green sun type of abstract, and they're hanging, instead of their arms in your decks, their arms are behind them, which also is one of the things that they would do when they hang people, upside down. But anyway, this one, the arms are outstretched. It's almost like they're like reaching for something, and their fingers are really, really outstretched, kind of like dance hands, and it's an abstract. It's much more abstract, but stretched, taut muscles you can see because the body is naked, and both of the hands and the
foot
and the foot, they have nails in them, so it's kind of like Christ on the cross. So there is that kind of sacrificial energy to it. Though the foot that's hanging from the ankh, it looks like, I thought it was just the foot was stuck through the ankh and that was holding it. But it also, I thought it was a rope around it, but it might be a snake. So there's a lot of, there's a lot more geometrics in there that can be analyzed too. One of the things I love about the Thoth deck is that you can stare at it for hours.
Yeah.
And always see a bunch of different things.
The green, to me, harkens to the green of the living tree.
And the three limbs that are not hanging from the ankh are nailed into green circles. So there's something there going on, and then there's green behind the head,
and then definitely still the energy coming from the head. This enlightenment energy.
Yeah, in the form of spikes, and then below that it looks like a snake. A coiled snake. So there's a great deal going on with that. And then with the Syrian Starseed deck, they're hanging from a pendulum. They're in a pendulum, and it is a hanging man who is he has his hands in front of him in kind of like namaste, prayer position. Eyes closed, very beatific, the way yours the way you have it, and a sunburst behind their head. But they're actually enclosed in a crystal, and they're hanging from what would be the metalwork for a pendulum, like from a chain, and their foot is through that. Their other foot is, it's really like not tree.
That is true. That's tree pose. Okay, it's
which
tree pose. I find interesting because it's like
the tree. Yeah. So they're in tree pose, just upside down. And it's a male in like a red, like the yoga pants or something, but drapey pants and stuff, and a naked torso, and then they're hanging in front of an abstraction of the sky. Beautiful. And the other thing about it that I don't see in the others is that where it says the hanging man, the letters are kind of cattywampus. Like they're kind of it's like they're each being held from a pendulum, and they're kind of flowing in the wind. So the letters don't go straight across the way they do with the other cards. It's kind of wavering. So let's talk a little bit about the Hanged One, shall we?
Yeah. So when I think about the Hanged One card, I think about a couple of major themes. One is it's voluntary surrender. It's about in the Rider-Waite, and then in the Modern Witch, the rope is wrapped around their foot, but there's no knot.
Oh,
so oftentimes, and like in your Syrian Starseed, like he is flexing his foot to hold him in there. There's nothing really holding him on. And in most decks, they're not like chained or locked. You know, it's like a rope wrapped around, but not being forced.
Right.
So like when I think about the Hanged One, for me as my year card, I think about this voluntary surrender.
Ooh, yes.
And whenever I'm voluntarily surrendering, I'm changing my perspective. I'm looking at things differently, but I'm choosing to do that.
Oh, you're choosing to give up control.
I am. So in a lot of ways, I feel like this fits with the Tower card. Whereas the Tower, like the building is falling, whether or not I want it to. That with the Hanged One, I'm choosing to change my perspective. I'm voluntarily surrendering myself to this work.
Right.
And at any moment, I can reach up and untie myself. Now that's a little different in but that doesn't surprise me for the Toth deck for you. He's like nailed there. That's, I mean, maybe he voluntarily surrendered to have the nails put in, but like,
but he's not. But I don't think that he's not nailed to there. He's nailed to those circles, but I don't think the circles are contained to him. He's like you say, he's voluntarily impaling himself for whatever reason. We don't know what it is, but he could get down anytime he wants. Yeah, it's
really cool to see the different versions. So,
and then with the Syrian Starseed, it's like this. The hanging man here is taking this as an opportunity to do some personal work. You know, to just hang there and go within.
Yeah, and I love the way you said that. Like the going within part for me, that the Hanged One is about giving up like more superficial things.
Yes.
In order to really go into something that has more depth, like spiritual work, the way, like my personal beliefs, like the things we shared about with like me going to camp and when you have COVID, like it was an opportunity for me to really change my perspective and to look deeper.
Right. Yeah.
And by removing myself from the mundane world, I'm creating this container for me to have that deeper practice.
Right. Yeah. And another part of the Hanged One for me is that it's, I don't know why this is the image that leaps into my head, but I think of it as kind of like, you know, sometimes people will say, okay, I'm taking a week off from social media and, you know, just, and letting everyone know. It's almost like, okay, this is the pause that refreshes. What is that from? That's an old, like, 60s ad. Anyway, but that they're really intentionally being there. Like, no one made them hang there. But what they're doing is they're taking that time. And I think about where it falls in the major arcana. It's 12, right? 12 or 13?
It's 12.
It's 12. And so this is that pause. You know, this is like the... I can't remember where it falls in that set of 7 or whatever. This is this opportunity to take some time to think about what's happened and to reflect upon that, and you know, you're literally stopping your journey and hanging from a tree by your foot.
Yeah.
I mean, so like you have to really want to do that. No one, that doesn't just happen to you, you know?
Right.
You know,
like, oops, I hung myself upside down by my ankle.
How'd that happen?
How did I here.
No, you've got to really, so
Yeah.
so that idea of intentionally taking this time, because if you don't, what comes next is not temperance, justice. Is it justice? I can't remember. There we get to the, justice, death, blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately the tower, right? So this is an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of, do a lot of, if you wish, internal work to help you cement the growth that you've done so far and to maybe fit you so that the rest of your journey doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah. It's a literal moment of suspension.
It's a literal moment of, and we have so many different archetypes that resonate with that, right? So we have, we mentioned the fact that it's kind of the opposite of the Christian crucifixion, but we have other mythological examples. Is it Mithras? I know. Wasn't Odin?
Odin, yeah. Odin
yeah.
was hung for 9 days.
Yeah, there we go.
And he was also hung in the figure 4 position like this.
Oh, okay. So he was hung upside down.
Yes.
Okay. And
yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about Mithras, but there's there's other, there's a lot of this idea of just hanging. And so in terms of Odin, do you happen to know what the thinking, like why was Odin hanging from a tree?
I don't know.
Like, did he say, whoops, I'm hanging. Let's take a moment. I'm gonna check out for a week and just hang from it. I think it was a penance or something, or what was he dying? I think he was dying. Okay, we don't need to investigate.
This is the moment where I say, I don't know, I'm really more into the elements than
Okay, as a historian, that kind of stuff jazzes me. But yeah, I'll look that up. I'll report back next time. But yeah, so there is some precedence for that. And,
in a lot of different religions, like Odin, the corn god, Jesus, it's something that shows up. Again, I feel like we keep coming back to this, but these steps on the hero's journey are universal all over. So we see them showing up in all of these different places throughout time.
And yes, and it's not just, okay, I'm going to sit here and reflect. In many cases, they either, because of this reflection, because of either the choice itself or the result of the reflection, there's enlightenment that happens. I mean, they're not hanging there with the blood rushing to their head going, crap, I need to get out of this tree. They're there voluntarily. Usually the expressions on a lot of their faces tend to be serene. And like we said, there's rainbows and halos and stuff happening, so this is a wonderful moment. So hanging is not a bad thing.
One of the things I really like about it is the idea of sacrifice. And because I'm a word nerd, I love words. I love linguistics. And I think about sacrifice, and I think our cultural version of sacrifice is slicing open an animal and it's like you kill something. It's more violent. But for me, when I think about what the word sacrifice really means, which is to make sacred, when we sacrifice time, when we offer that up and we hang ourselves and we suspend ourselves to have reflection, we are making this a sacred transition. We are making a sacred transformation of our lives, literally transforming the way we are. We're turning it ourselves upside down to then experience this.
Ooh. Oh, and then this is kind of more mundane, but by turning yourself upside down, you're totally changing your perspective, right? So, and that will allow for a way of stepping out of your mundane way of handling things and making it easier to be to make things sacred. Yeah,
and the enlightenment that we receive from that is really the symbol of that is that halo around the head, which is in all of our cards.
Yeah, which can also come from the blood rushing to your head.
Also,
but think about it: the blood rushing to your head, bringing all that richness to your head. I mean, your head might explode, but it's going to explode with all of this wonderful knowledge and insight and enlightenment. Yeah.
As somebody who does hand balancing as a practice, maybe I'm thinking I should assume this figure 4 position sometime.
Assume the position. Okay, I want to see a picture.
Hand balancing is a sacrifice, by the way.
Well, except for my toque deck, though, their hands are behind their bodies. I wonder if they're tied. Because when people were hung, their hands were tied, so they couldn't.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So generally, let's go with the regular crucifixion, not Christian, but the Roman crucifixion. They were not nailed; they were tied. Okay, and because they were tied, that lasted longer. It took them. Yeah, that's life or death.
Yeah,
it took them longer to die. When they were nailed, they couldn't bring themselves up, and like the blood pooled, etc., etc. So they died faster. Being crucified upside down, there was a symbolism, and I can't remember what it was. I think it was like you don't deserve to be upright or something, but you also died faster.
Oh.
You also died faster because you can't. The reason they tied their hands behind their back was that you couldn't relieve the pressure and pull yourself and change your position so that the blood flows and stuff would change. And there's more reasons too. It's not just I'm totally oversimplifying. But by tying your hands behind your back, you die faster. So it's better. I mean, if you're going to be crucified, it's
right.
Like, do you want the full meal deal or do you just want to die?
Exactly. Yeah. What sort of tower experience do you want?
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're talking about hand balancing, it's really head balancing.
It is.
Which have you done any of that?
No.
Okay. So you might want to rethink that. Okay. But you could do part of it. You could do a hand balance, but then assume the 4 position with your foot.
I am going to do that.
Okay. Oh, take a picture.
I will.
Okay. Yay. We can put it in our show notes. But anyway, so
whenever I get the hang, so when the hang one popped up for me, my initial reaction was not excited.
or not excited in a good way.
Yeah. Like I was not pumped about it. Because there is that willing surrender. And in that willing surrender, there is a giving up of control, which is not my favorite thing. Now, it's different than the tower, but it definitely didn't jazz me. Now, when I sink into it and I can talk myself into it and I can support myself and understanding that, and then it does become easier. But I just want to be clear, with the listeners, I was not excited.
Yeah. So one of the things that always strikes me about this card is that you're not, in my opinion, it's not giving up control. What I'm doing is taking a deliberate step outside of the physical. I'm absenting myself from the physical world because there's absolutely nothing I can do in the physical world for the time that I'm hanging upside down. And so that I can really focus on the spiritual. I can, or focus on the mind, or focus on whatever the reason I'm doing that. And so in a way, it's actually having the ultimate control. You know what I mean? It's like,
you're selling me on this.
Yeah, no one's hanging you upside down.
Right, I am doing it to myself. I'm making that choice.
You're making a choice for a year to do some intense inner work and allowing and sloughing off the physical things that are keeping that from happening, or welcoming the physical things that will allow that to happen. Right. So, welcoming the chance to go to camp, or welcoming COVID. I was trying to make that happen, but you see what I'm saying? So in a way, seeing that card is, okay, so what does this mean for me in this period of time? Like what physical, emotional, et cetera, stuff do I need to be thinking about?
I think that is just a really great example to the thing we keep coming back to over and over again, which is there are no good cards. There are no bad cards. There are only cards that offer us an invitation.
Yes. Yeah. Boy, howdy. What was, I can't remember. There was some, in my hanging man, there were some questions, but I think I took the book out for another reason, because I was doing some work somewhere else, so I don't have the book. But it has a lot of questions, and I think it was like, so I can't remember, but it was something like, what are the ways in which I am allowing my spirit, I can't remember, but it's something about letting go of the control, so that your spirit can kind of take over.
Oof. Okay, that's some work.
Yeah. So I mean, the beauty of tarot is that it's fun and it's super super woo woo, and it's kind of scary sometimes, the insights that you get. But if you really really want to get the most out of them, it's also work.
Yes. Yeah, I don't feel like the reading or the seeing of the card is the invitation, and then the real work begins. And
that's exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
And how much I get out of it is totally up to me. I could choose to like ignore it, which probably would lead eventually to the tower. Or I can choose to do, I could choose to do the work. But that is a choice, and the only person that can do that is me.
Yes,
and
indeed.
That's the beauty and the challenge and the struggle is that it's that simple.
And part of that challenge is when you're reading, which is why I don't read for people much anymore. When you're reading that, to be able to get a lot of that across, so that they are just not like clenching up when they see the tower or see the hanged one, and being able to explore the options that actually open up for them when they see those cards.
Yeah, that's the same reason why I don't read a lot for people either.
Like trying to, that's one of the reasons I love you so much, is that we can have these conversations. And so many other people, like, you have to go through all of that other stuff to get to that before this conversation could take place.
Exactly.
Right? So yeah. We'll just read for each other.
Well, thank you to our listeners for going through this stuff
with us. Yes.
There are so many ways of reading and so many ways of understanding, and like we mentioned in the other episode, like I'm sure there's a book for each card somewhere,
right.
But so we've really just scratched the surface on this. But this is just such a transformational tool that I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. And we're hoping that many of you will take this opportunity to, if you haven't already, to figure out your year and life cards and play with these ideas and use this as an opportunity for some growth, some transformation and growth.
And I would love to hear from our listeners. What is your year card? What is your life card?
Yeah.
How does that land with you? What are your thoughts about that?
Right. And then, so I was just going to say, sorry. Also, we're not going to do a poem.
Yeah.
But
I'm so excited. Yeah. Can you share about it?
Yeah, sure. So what we'll be doing is, at least 7 or 8 years ago. It was a long time ago. We did a year-long path, an intensive, where we met once a month, and we went through the major arcana. We usually did about 2 cards, I think.
So my rite of passage was in 2013, and this was before my rite of passage. So
Damn.
This is going to be over a decade ago.
Okay, at least 10 years ago. And so I wrote a chant for that, and it sang about the growth or possibilities of walking through that. And so I'm going to play a little excerpt for us of that as we go out. And I hope you enjoy it.
I know I do. Listening to it really is wonderful.
Yay.
I love hearing the voices of our circle.
Yay.
22 symbols, 22 faces, 22 wisdoms teaching me. 22 symbols, 22 faces, 22 wisdoms teaching me. Step by step, making my journey, learning my life with every card I see. Step by step, making my journey come full round to a deeper, richer me. 25 symbols, making my journey, learning my life with every card I see. 25 symbols, making my journey come full round to a deeper, richer me. 25 making my journey, learning my life with every card I see. Step by step, making my journey, come full round to a deeper, richer me.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!